Alright, back with the Pro Wrestling Diagnosis. Once again, gonna talk about WWE and AEW for the week, and once again, hit why wrestling as TV shows just aren't working. You know, the biggest reasons for this are that, one, the WWE gets these big TV contracts. You got Fox paying them so much money, so they don't even have to put an effort in the TV shows because they're already getting these big ass TV contracts just because they have a decent demo. And then you got AEW, who, if they were to actually become a real rival in the TV ratings and not just the stupid ass demo, then maybe that would actually have to force the WWE to put out better TV shows. But instead, Tony Khan and AEW never seems to want to actually expand his audience and just always plays to the same people. And so that is why we have the problems that we now have. I'm going to start with AEW this week. And, you know, Tony Khan had that tweet about how he had this independent study done, and he found out that there was a bunch of bots accounts on Twitter that hates on AEW, which maybe some of that's true, but I think there's just plenty of WWE fans that hate on AEW, and there's just plenty of people that don't like AEW, and that is a thing. Tony Khan does have a bots problem, which stands for booking only terrible shit. And so we're going to talk about Dynamite, which I thought was terrible. And I guess we'll touch on Rampage as well. But I said something in last week's show that, you know, I can never tell in AEW if these wrestlers are actually over because they're getting good reactions, or if the AEW audience just cheers everything because they just love anything AEW does. And it's definitely the latter. So we start the night with a CM Punk versus Penta match, and look, it was okay only because of CM Punk's selling. CM Punk definitely one of the better sellers in the business because, you know, most wrestlers these days don't even know how to sell to make what they're trying to do look somewhat realistic. But the whole Punk climbing the ladder storyline is so lame to me. It's just not exciting. I've talked about how Punk coming into AEW has been underwhelming, unfortunately, for them and the product overall. So this whole Punk climbing the ladder to get his shot at the AEW title, it's boring. Then in the back, we have the Jericho Appreciation Society attacked at the airport by Kingston, Santana, and Ortiz. I mean, I did like this. It was something that actually happened outside of the arena. Them trying to do something outside of the arena is big for AEW, so I'll give them that. I think Jericho usually has a lot to do with stuff like that. And then most of the rest of the show were just like matches, and that's why I continue to find AEW so boring. Like, I get they're trying to get people over in their matches, but in wrestling, you get wrestlers over by having segments backstage or giving them storylines, and the whole matches thing isn't going to really get anybody over here. Like the tag titles, Red Dragon versus Jurassic Express, decent tag match, but a tag match that's a dime a dozen. And then we have the Blackpool Combat Club with they now have Willer Utah in the group, and Willer is not good at the mic. We saw that here. He was completely outclassed by Moxley and Bryan Danielson. So, you know, he's just kind of coming off as like this good wrestler in this group. I've had problems since it started in teaming Moxley and Bryan Danielson together, but yes, it just hasn't worked for me, and it's not working with Willer Utah either. And I don't think Willer Utah's over. That's what I decided. That's what I talked about in last week's show, like Tony Khan patting himself on the back for booking Willer Utah to have this bloody match with Jon Moxley, and that's going to be the thing that makes him. Nah, he still has a long way to go. You know, it's just like Hangman Page. Tony Khan thought that because there was some semblance of a long-term story that Adam Page winning the title would just make him. And yet now he has the title, and it has devalued the AEW World title because the feud with Adam Cole has not been good. So this is more of the problem with Tony Khan's constantly bad booking as of late. And really just overall. So like the only story in AEW continues to be the MJF and Wardlow feud. Here we have Wardlow costing MJF a match against Shawn Dean, MJF losing by countout, when Wardlow does the same thing he's been doing for weeks now, coming out and security having to stop him, causing the distraction. Here he scares MJF out of the ring and costs him the match. Now, I do think parts of this feud are getting stale because they're having to stretch it out over so long, because I assume they want to have this match at the next pay-per-view, and that's not till the end of May. So they're going to have to continue to keep stretching this out and spinning its wheels. But overall, I think MJF just continues to play one of the best heels in the business for sure. And I think he is helping make this feud work and be the only decent feud going right now in all of AEW. Because we're already getting, maybe the feud's continuing, but it's already still, I'm talking about Kingston Santana Ortiz against Jericho Hager, Daniel Garcia, Jericho Appreciation Society getting the win here after the use of a baseball bat. So it keeps them winning as a heel. But I don't know if the Jericho Appreciation Society is working. For one, Jericho needs to change the song he comes out to. Because if he's going to be a heel, him coming out to a Fozzy song that the crowd will sing doesn't make him a heel. It has him over as a face still doing that. So he needs to change that song. But also, I think they just need to have a more out there storyline. Like, it started well, that they're going to be sports entertainers and take out all the wrestlers in AEW. But there hasn't really been good enough follow through to that story. And, yeah. And speaking of things not working in AEW, which is almost everything I've talked about so far, but another person not working is Malachi Black. You know, he has this dark, almost Undertaker-like character, but in order for Malachi Black to really work in AEW, he's going to have non-wrestling storylines, but that's clearly only what Tony Khan wants to book. I mean, yeah, you already got the records for these wrestlers when they come out, like it's a real sport. So how is a character like Malachi Black supposed to work in AEW when there's no push to make these like more supernatural characters get over because there's no non-wrestling stories? So right now he's like in the story where he wants to destroy Fuego del Sol, but we need to see some sort of supernatural stories, I guess. But that's hard to tell in pro wrestling. It worked with The Undertaker at times, but there was a lot of Undertaker stories early on that were just cringy. Even as a kid, even when WWF was more like kid-oriented in the early 90s and mid-90s. So it's hard for a character like that to work in wrestling, which we'll get to on Raw as well. Another match, we had Marina Shafir get her Dynamite debut and totally shit the bed. They were building her up as Jade Cargill's 30th opponent in AEW, but yeah, she's gonna be a stumble there. And then we had Hobbs and Starks versus Swerve and Keith Lee. Keith Lee taking a pin here. I don't know if that's great for Keith Lee in AEW. He was supposed to be a game changer, remember? I also feel like Stark should have got the win here if that team was going to win, because he was over, even though they're heels, he was over in New Orleans. He should have got the pin. Then we get the main event, the old slap your chest fest between Samoa Joe and Minoru Suzuki for the ROH TV title. And here's why I think Tony Khan's booking is shit right now. He bought ROH, and now he's trying to include ROH titles into the AEW mix because ROH doesn't have a TV show right now. He hasn't found a home for ROH TV. And so it's just blending together. It's like just an extension of AEW. So there's already no differentiating ROH from AEW, for one. But we already know how bloated the roster is in AEW. So you see that he is just trying to do way too much at once. And I think that is why some of the last few TV shows at Dynamite for me have been so bad. Because he's trying to make people care about the ROH titles suddenly, when he can't even book his fucking AEW titles in the first place. I mean, we've already talked about Hangman Page's title and how it's been a total failure. The women's title, he doesn't give them any TV time as it is, so how is that supposed to get over? We're going to talk about the TNT title here in a second, which he already has put it on somebody else again. So he's done a shitty job of booking the AEW titles, and now he's trying to add the ROH titles into the mix. It's too much, and it's not working. And then Samoa Joe wins here, and we get this Saddam Singh guy, this big tall guy, attacks Samoa Joe, and Tony Khan even has his own fan base for once, annoyed that that's how they ended Dynamite. And that they just have this big guy that probably can't wrestle come out. I mean, I have no desire to see a big man in AEW because I don't think they'll book him right. Like, giants in wrestling are just supposed to be freak shows. That's really what it's supposed to be. We see Omos in WWE not working already, even though they gave him the MVP mouthpiece, which I think will help, but it won't help enough because Omos can't do shit. So I think they'll have a hard time getting this giant guy over in AEW because the fan base is already shitting on him at his debut. So Tony Khan has more than just Twitter bots pissed off at him. One thing I didn't mention is that it seems like Kiera Hogan and Red Velvet are now a part of Jade Cargill's baddie section. So maybe that's the newest faction in AEW. Everybody's in a faction in AEW except CM Punk. So on Rampage, we have the Texas Death Match, and Hangman Adam Page defeats Adam Cole again. I don't know where they go with Adam Cole from here. Putting him right into the title scene wasn't the best because it was a total failure of a feud. And Red Dragon was losing on Dynamite, so I don't know where they go from here with Adam Cole. I think they're going to have an extremely tough time making Adam Cole work in AEW. And frankly, it's kind of because Adam Cole has never been as good as everybody thinks he has been. Hate to break it to people, that's just facts. And I'm recording this before tonight's AEW Battle of the Belts 2 goes. So this is going to be some spoiler talk, so you might want to skip ahead if you're listening to this, because I'm going to talk about a spoiler for that show of Scorpio Sky already losing the TNT title back to Sammy Guevara. Also seems like they're turning Sammy Guevara heel again, although that's happening naturally because him and Ty Conti are getting a lot of hate from the fans, so I guess those two are just going to be heels now as a couple in AEW. God, when these two break up in real life, which is probably inevitable, it's going to be a shit show between those two probably in real life. We already see some shit shows happening between other real life couples That kid from NXT was fired recently. So I can only imagine these two in the future. But yeah, them already taking the title off of Scorpio Sky, wow. They clearly have zero idea what to do with Scorpio Sky. And the fact that they were able to make Dan Lambert look like the face here, I mean, I guess that speaks to how much AEW fans are becoming annoyed with the Samu Guevara-Tai Conti relationship. But yeah, they need to actually... Tony Khan and his too big of a roster needs to find something for Scorpio Sky, but especially for Ethan Page. Ethan Page, the fact that he's not on television anymore boggles my mind, because he's actually good. So, Tony Khan doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. AEW is honestly a mess right now, and the TV shows are terrible. So, let's move on to WWE. Because Raw was actually the better show for once ever. It's been a long time since I've thought that Raw was the best wrestling TV show of a week, but this past week it was. They tried some new things, and they just had good booking for once. We'll get to SmackDown as well, which was boring and bad, but we'll talk about Raw first, And, I was trying to book Raw and SmackDown, doing those booking videos, but I don't got time for that. I laid out some stories for, some for 3 months, some for 6 months, some for even a year. I had some good story ideas. And I think... But, I mean, what's the use of putting them out there? It's not like WWE is going to change their ways or somehow see one of my videos and be like, wow, we should actually be booking better. But we'll talk about WWE's booking here. We started this Raw with Cody on Miz TV. Great segment. I found it pretty funny. I think Miz is a good person for Cody to spar with on the mic. I enjoyed the whole wrestler versus superstar thing and the whole belt versus title between Cody and Miz. Miz correcting Cody on the words to call them in WWE was a nice touch. But Cody's hot right now as a face, but I just don't think WWE's booking is consistent enough. My question is Cody actually still going to be this hot come SummerSlam? Come SummerSlam, is Cody still going to be hot in the WWE? Or will it completely lose steam because WWE has, for one, a bunch of boring television, but for two, they just don't know how to book anymore, or they don't even try, really, is what it comes down to. I do think Cody's story should work, though, but I think they need to keep him away from the title for a while. My idea with booking was to have him in a title... Well, if anybody watched any of my booking videos, I had it so where Roman Reigns had to defend both the WWE title and the Universal title. So that way, eventually I was going to have Roman have to give up the WWE title, so there would be a title on Raw again, and that's the title Cody could go for at SummerSlam. But I would have someone or something screw Cody out of that title shot at SummerSlam to keep that story going, and then maybe Cody eventually winning the title at either Mania or maybe next year's SummerSlam, because I think it is a long-term story that could and should work, but it has to be booked right. We got this Veer guy. They just made him a usual monster heel. I thought he should have started as a face, and then you could turn him into a heel, give him deeper roots first. But yeah, he's just a regular monster heel. And then there's Dominic, who's just always beat on. He's always a victim. That's where they always have Dominic Mysterio. And so I was thinking, if they're going to just continue to always make Dominic this kid that gets destroyed in feuds and is always the victim of being beat up and stretchered out, that I really think they need to make him this manifesto heel in the future, where he's this really dark and demented character with some mental issues from all these beatings he's took. I think that would work in the future for Dominic Mysterio. Keep that in mind. So then we get this AJ Styles versus Damien Priest match, and we get the match just ends abruptly when this purple light shines on Priest, and they have his eyes bugging out and making him look like a vampire and shit. they like the excuse was that the electricity went out, and that's why the match had to end. And AJ Styles upset, and he has all these scratches on his face. It was weird, but I like them trying something different. You know, I think the whole Fiend story got a little too stupid and cartoonish. And the whole, even Alexa Bliss having that similar character doesn't work that well. So I don't know if WWE's track record in recent years is good with this whole supernatural stuff. But in my booking, my idea was eventually to have this new brood type thing. And if that's where they're going here with Damien Priest and maybe others in the future, and like Edge is the leader, I'm all for it. I think it could work if they don't make it too cartoonish. And I also think I was going to include Gangrel in that story, and I think Gangrel should have some part of this story. I'm not saying Gangrel needs to return as like this regular TV character, but it would be a nice throwback to Edge's roots. And if they're going to the whole vampire-like direction with Damien Priest, then I think Gangrel having an appearance or two would work awesomely. So, if they're going that direction, I hope they consider that. Alright, Cody and Miz had a match. Rollins was at ringside. Cody gets that win. Rollins wants a rematch with Cody since he was surprised at WrestleMania because he didn't know who his opponent was. I can go for a Rollins and Cody feud continuing. I still think they should have made Cody like this huge outsider to the WWE though, and I don't know why they're not doing that. Especially with Ciampa now on Raw. If anybody watched my booking for Raw, it was to have like Ciampa and Rollins represent Triple H in him wanting to destroy Cody coming back to the WWE. Would have been a far better storyline. But we just get Ciampa talking to Kevin Owens about Ezekiel and that stupid joke of a story. Anyway, Naomi defeated Liv Morgan. It was good to see a champion win a match. I mean, lately we've had champions losing non-title matches. I know Naomi did lose on SmackDown, but yeah, honestly, the best part of the entirety of the WWE this week was Sasha Banks. I mean, all she did was stand at ringside, but anybody who watched knows that she was the best part of Raw. Lashley interrupted MVP's VIP lounge thing. Like I said earlier, we have MVP representing Amos now. Amos needs a mouthpiece, so it's good that he has MVP. And Lashley seems like they're building him up as this big face on Raw. I mean, it was what it was. Bianca Belair defeated Zelina Vega, and then Sonya Deville makes herself the number one contender, attacking Bianca. You know, I said it for AEW, and I have to say it again here. I don't like the first direction for Bianca's second title reign here, being against Sonya Deville. But it could work because if Sonya Deville continues to be like one of the people in charge and she's trying to screw Bianca, it keeps Bianca as a big face. So it could work, but it's not the most thrilling feud for Bianca Belair. I mean, it's still better than Thunder Rosa and her feud with Nyla Rose on AEW. And then we had the Usos and them coming to Raw because they want to unify the tag titles and defeat RK Bro. The Usos defeat the Street Profits. And, you know, one of the things I'm starting to notice with WWE's booking here is that they book their champions, well, some of them. Not the mid-card titles, which is going to be my point. But the tag champions and the world champions, and I guess now the unified champion, they're always booked super ridiculously strong here. And then all the other tag teams and all the other single stars are just always losing or just always stuck in 50-50 booking. But the roster is it's just not deep right now. And because of that, there's like literally no mid-card. I think that's one of the many reasons why the Intercontinental title and the U.S. title mean jack shit anymore, is because there's just no mid-card in general, and because anybody who's not one of the top people is just always losing or always stuck in 50-50 booking. So yeah, I've just been noticing that here because I just don't like Street Profits losing here. Like, I get it because they're building up. They want to unify the tag titles, I guess. I don't know. Are they just going to unify all the titles? Is that the idea they're going for? Or is the brand split going to be over again or not? They never seem to make up what they want to do with that shit. I don't know. I don't get it. Not a lot to talk about with SmackDown. We had RK Bro confronting the Usos, agreeing to a match with them. We had Naomi losing to Rhea Ripley, setting up the women's tag title match on Raw. We had Corbin talking about dropping dead weight like Madcap Moss, and then Madcap Moss beating Humberto. A Gulak interview. He's auditioning to be an interviewer and then just gets beat up by Charlotte Flair. My idea for Gulak, because I think he needs to be paired with Sami Zayn. Like, Gulak can become like an understudy of Sami Zayn, who is, always talking about conspiracies. Like, they could have their own little conspiracy QAnon type shit within wrestling. I think that would be more entertaining. Sami Zayn's still working. Sami Zayn milks all the TV time he gets and makes his character get over. But I think it would help Drew Gulak. I think he would fit in that role as well. But instead, we get him being beat up by Charlotte Flair. We had Ludwig and Gunther, and they cut a promo on how Gunther is here to protect the honor of pro wrestling or some shit. Ricochet defeated Jinder, and then Jimmy Uso and Matt Riddle had Riddle won. Whoop-de-doo. We've also been getting those Lacey Evans vignettes about her talking about her childhood and how her father was abusive, and it's kind of awkward, her talking about her father's anger and mental health issues. I kind of get it on one hand, like, this is their way of trying to make Lacey Evans a face, obviously, since she was a heel for so long, and a stuck-up one at that. So I get it. Like, I guess maybe we're supposed to feel sorry for Lacey Evans to get behind her. But I do wonder if that's going to work. I don't know. We'll find out when Lacey Evans is actually back in matches, I guess. But yeah, SmackDown sucked, but Raw was actually entertaining for once. Alright, let's get to my best and worst of the week. Best segment. There's two. One was on Raw. I think the Miz TV with Cody was entertaining. But there was also one on Impact Wrestling where we get this Morrissey, who used to be Big Cass in WWE. He cut this real promo about his addiction in the past and how the last time he was at the arena that they were in, I think in Philadelphia, he had a seizure because of his alcohol issues, and now he's back sober. So I don't watch a lot of Impact, so I don't really know how deep the story is, but I enjoyed this segment with him talking about that, and then Myers and Matt Cardona attacking him, putting him through a table. And it was kind of the first time in nearly a decade where I kind of want to see an Impact Wrestling feud, so I have to give them some credit for that. Match of the week is always tough for me. I don't think there was any match that just really stood out to me this week. So it is what it is. I'm actually going to give my promo of the week to Ludwig and Gunther. I like their presentation. They're being presented well. I think it's going to work. And I like the promo that Ludwig cut. So I'll give them some credit on that. If we're going to go worst match of the week, we're going to look at AEW. Because there's two. Maria Shafir and Sky Blue was a waste of time. Nobody got over there. It was quick. The only few minutes that any women in AEW had on Dynamite that episode, it just sucked. I also thought the Samoa Joe and Minoru Suzuki match was shit. Sorry for all your New Japan fans or whatever, but a match that mostly consists of like slaps to the chest is child's play shit, bro. Not good. Tag team of the week. I'm gonna say RK Bro. Look, Randy Orton, this over as a face, this late in his career. This is the most he's ever been over as a face in his career, and it's working well. Like, they could very well make Orton the guy that ends Roman Reigns' streak here. But I still think it should be some young guy in the future. I'm still not certain who that person should be other than maybe Cody Rhodes himself. Woman wrestler of the week, honestly, for me, it was Sasha Banks. She didn't do a whole lot, but she was the women's wrestler of the week for anybody that watched Raw. And then the male wrestler of the week is a toughie, honestly. There's no male wrestler that really stood out. I mean, I guess I just have to give it to Cody Rhodes. He's came back to the WWE white hot, and he's still hot right now. I don't know if the WWE or him can keep that momentum going. But for right now, in this moment in time, Cody did what he set out to do. He left the WWE, got himself over elsewhere, and came back as a major player in the WWE. So credit where credit is due. That's all for this week. I will suffer through another week of wrestling TV for y'all again next week.